Hello and welcome back to the Google Workspace Update podcast from Strawberry 7. My name is Adam.
And my name is Adam.
We're here every week to bring you the latest updates around everything happening in the world of Google Workspace. This podcast is available in audio format from your regular podcast provider and also in video format on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/strawberry7.
Coming up on the show today.
We've got quite a packed show for you today. We've got 9 updates, and they are from Google Meet, Chat, Meet Gmail and Chat, together in one update, Sheets, Calendar, Chat, Meet, Gmail and Keep. So we've got quite a lot of sort of repetition in there across the different platforms, but they are all different updates. And there are time indexes for all of these different updates available in the description of the video or available as chapter selections on your podcast. Let's get to it.
On with the show! Right, so first up on this very special episode, it's our quarter centenary episode this week. So if you've been joining us all along, then thank you very much. And Get ready for some more updates. So very first update we've got for you this week is to do with Google Meet. So you can now view peripheral devices directly in the Google Meet green room. So before joining a Google Meet meeting, you'll be able to instantly check which of your peripheral devices are available and connected. You can view your peripheral devices via the settings menu, but this update makes it easier to select equipment or identify potential issues. And this update is available right now.
Oh, amazing, Adam. When I actually read this update document, I went and had a look at this before we joined this meeting, and it was exactly as Google shows here. And just to let everybody know, Adam has very kindly, although maybe made a rod for his own back with this for future updates, but he's very kindly included some pictures in our document, which is always available in the description of the podcast or the description of the video. There's a link to the update document, and Adam has now included some pictures in there for you to go and have a look at, which shows you where these settings are and where the information is. And I had a look at this beforehand, and it's a really lovely little tweak, because just before you go into the meeting, as Google says, you can still go into the settings, but rather than having to go all the way in there, you can just instantly see that you've got the right microphone, the right speakers and the right camera, and you can change them if you need to. Brilliant little update, that. Thank you, Adam.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with that. So especially if you're a bit like we are, so we're using a different microphone to the default device of our computers. And so then if you are using a different device or a different camera or whatever situation you have going on, it's really easy just to double check and just to clarify which device is or is not connected.
Yeah, 100% Adam. Yeah, lovely little update, that. Thank you very much, Adam. What have we got next?
Right, next up we have an update for Google Chat. So there are now improvements to sales and customer service integrations in Google Chat. Third-party sales tool Salesforce and customer service tool Zendesk are now better integrated with Google Chat using the updated Salesforce and Zendesk Chat apps. The Salesforce Chat app now allows you to more easily search and share Salesforce records into the chat stream. The Zendesk Chat app provides more improved notifications of updates to Zendesk tickets into chat, including the ability to update and reassign tickets. Installing these apps provides simpler access to your sales and customer service workflow directly in chat. And just like the previous update, this update is available right now.
Yeah, it's a very nice integration, this. I had a look at that picture that you kindly provided there, Adam, and I thought to myself, I mean, we've kind of had this before when we were on Slack, before we used Google Chat, and we tried sort of integrating it and didn't find it really helped very much. But I think the sort of key thing here with your team, if you're thinking, why would you use this integration? For me, the key thing is to just try and reduce the clutter in your email inbox. So if you take an example of what we do, we use Zendesk for our support desk. And at the moment, what happens is an email gets pinged through to you guys to say, hey, there's something has appeared in Zendesk, as a ticket or something that's come in. And likewise, if you get updates or anything like that, all kind of goes through email at the moment. So I think this is really just doing the same thing, but in chat, and you've kind of got some tools built directly within chat, as it says there, to be able to reassign the ticket or update it all directly within chat. So it's just helping to move out of your email box and help declutter your email box. That was kind of how I read this update.
Yes, absolutely. So I know that there already was. Okay, we don't actually have that much direct experience using Salesforce, but we do use Zendesk, and I do know that there was already a Zendesk Google Chat app. So it looks like they've now updated that, which hopefully will be really helpful for many people out there. Something that I also wondered. So within using Zendesk, we use lots of macros, which helps us a huge amount with all of our tickets. I'm not sure if that is something that you would still be able to implement throughout this update or through using the Zendesk app through Google Chat, but I'm sure this will be really helpful for many people out there if they do use Zendesk, and equally if they do use Salesforce as well.
Absolutely. It might be something that we might want to look into as to whether it's a bit better bringing those Zendesk updates into chat. What would be very, very clever with this, which maybe it does do at the moment, like Adam says, we don't have direct experience using this integration, but what would be very clever for Zendesk particularly as a future update is if it had the ability to remain in the chat space that it was in when new tickets were coming in, but then when you had a ticket assigned to you, it kind of went into your own chat space, because that's the one big downside that I can see of trying to use chat all the time, is the fact that you're going to get updates about every single ticket, whereas for us, for example, once a ticket comes in to the unassigned area and you take that as your own ticket, or for your particular school in our case, that's yours, and you wouldn't want to hear about the updates for someone else's because it's just not relevant for you. So that would possibly be a good update there if they could separate off those chat streams.
Yeah, definitely. But either way, this is definitely a step in the right direction. And as I say, I'm sure this is going to be very helpful for many people out there, especially if they are using these services.
Yeah, absolutely. Great, thank you, Adam. What have we got next?
Right, next up we've got a 3-in-1. So this is for Google Meet, Gmail and Chat. So there's now a two-pane view on foldable Android devices that is now available for Meet, Gmail and Chat. As part of Google's mission to provide a top-class user experience on large screen devices, Android foldable device users have been able to access a two-pane view for Google Meet and Gmail. Google is super excited to announce that this includes the chat tab in the Gmail app, and once again, this update is also available right now.
Yeah, lovely update that. Yeah, so that's, again, just adding that support there for another Google application on those two-screen foldable devices. I don't have one myself. I know you don't have one, Adam, but I can well imagine how this would make it a bit nicer having those two screens. You just get a little bit more real estate on this update.
Yes. So I was thinking for the foldable devices. Is there just a phone that's two screen, or is there actually like a large screen? Is there like a tablet that's foldable as well? I'm not too sure about that one.
Well, I've seen a few of them. I think Robert actually has one, our colleague.
Okay.
So you could ask him to show it on the next team meeting to see what it's like. I'm pretty sure he's got one. My understanding of these devices is they're two. There's two sort of versions, if you like, available. There's the phone that folds in half. So that's actually like the old clamshell mobile phones.
Yeah, that's the device that I was thinking of.
Yeah, so that's like the old clamshell phones and opens up. So for any of our listeners over the age of about 28 or something like that, I don't know, 25 maybe, you might remember those clamshell phones that were, very, very popular in the early, probably early 2000s to mid 2000s, weren't they?
Motorola V3 Razr R, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was one of the most popular ones, wasn't it? It's super thin. It's like one of those clamshell phones, and it opens up to the size of a typical smartphone, like an iPhone. But then you've got these other ones which are sort of start off the size of a normal smartphone, like say like the size of an iPhone, but they're very thick. They're like twice the thickness, and they fold out sort of, rather than folding up vertically, they fold out horizontally,
Like a
and
book.
so they become, yeah, that's right, yeah, and they become like a little tablet. So yeah, you're absolutely right. They open up like a book and become like a little tablet. So I don't know if there's kind of varying sizes of those. I presume there are, in that sort of arena, but those are the two different versions that I'm aware of. So I think what they're talking about here is the one that opens up like a book, like you say. So I was just going to say, just as a reminder there, as Adam said, this has been available previously for Google Meet and Gmail. They've just added it in for Google Chat now as well, which is great. Thank you, Adam. What have we got next?
Up next, we've got a Google Sheets update. Optimized Zoom experience for Google Sheets on Android devices. So in continuing Google's efforts to enhance the Google Workspace experience on Android devices, they're introducing an improved Zoom scale experience when using Google Sheets on Android devices. Upon opening the Sheets app, Zoom scales are now different based on your device type. So rolling out to rapid release is right now, and launch to scheduled release is planned for mid-March.
Excellent. Okay, so yeah, another little tweak there. And for anybody who wants to kind of see a before and after, now Adam, they were clearly listening to our last our last episode. I mean, it's the only explanation that the top brass at Google are intently listening to our podcast, because they must have heard on the last episode you say how handy it would have been for Google to provide a before and after picture with some of these updates, and now they have. There's a before and after picture. So for anybody wanting to check out what it looked like before on mobile with these sort of Zoom functions and what it looks like afterwards, there is a lovely picture on the document which is linked in the description of either the podcast or the video podcast, and you can scroll down. It's around about halfway down and you'll be able to see the before and after there. So it's good to know that Google are checking out our podcast, and hopefully I'm sure they'll leave a review in no time at all.
Absolutely, yeah. I really like this update. I think is one of those smaller things, but I think it'll really help, because looking at the before image, especially if you are on your phone, for example, and it's not a massive screen, I imagine lots of users would probably, the first thing they're doing as soon as they've opened their Google Sheets document, they're probably zooming in because they can't really see. So it's really great that it's now being a little bit more intuitive and picking the correct kind of level of zoom depending on your device. So I think that should be really helpful for lots of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it does often come down to these tiny little tweaks, because I know when I was going up to London quite regularly on the tube and things like that, you know, the tube is not it's very efficient, but it's not the smoothest method of transport. And I would often find when I was working on Google Sheets on my iOS device, maybe it's different on Android, but I would go to zoom in and then the tube would jerk and my finger would, or my thumb would hit a cell. And then suddenly you haven't just not zoomed in, but you've suddenly brought up the keyboard and all the formula bars, so now you can't see half the screen. It's those little things that really frustrate me anyway as a user, and I'm sure they do most people as well. So just having, like you say, this sort of clarity from the start is a lot better. Lovely. Thank you, Adam. What have we got next?
Up next, we have a Google Calendar update. So you can now save time with suggested work locations in Google Calendar. Now, I'm sure we've come across this before, but Google seem to really be hitting home. They want you to set your working locations. So since announcing the ability to share where you're working from directly on Google Calendar, Google has introduced features that enable better planning around in-person collaboration and meeting collaboration, especially in a hybrid work environment. And a few examples of this includes office building support for working locations, encouraging working locations coverage across organizations, and increasing efficiency through better meeting room management with room release. Google has added an update that helps you easily define your work location much quicker with suggested work locations based on your recent locations.
Yeah, that's a very, very useful update. And you're right. Google are really trying to sort of promote this hybrid working environment. I think the reason that Google put so much emphasis on it is because by its very nature, Google Workspace lends itself to those organizations that have a hybrid work environment or have a collaborative online working sort of ethos. So it does make sense that they're kind of really wanting to provide that clarity. And obviously they are trying to appeal to these big corporate clients who do have offices all over the place or a lot of employees. So I do understand why they keep making tweaks to this. And again, there's a little picture showing how these are suggested, and it's quite nice that you can have the locations that I think I'm right in saying this, locations that your company has sort of entered for you or made available for you as buildings, but then you've got other locations that you can set as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. So, as with many of these updates that we come across, I'm sure this will be really helpful for quite a few people.
Yeah, and just to let you know as well, in the description document, there are some links to the sort of examples of showing off these different locations that you can set and the different options which are there.
Yes, that's right. So if you would like to get started with this update, so for the admins, working location is on by default and can be disabled at the domain or OU level. And for the end users, suggested working locations will appear when setting a custom working location.
Lovely. And when can we see that available, Adam?
So rapid release for this started on February the 27th, with scheduled release starting on March the 13th. This update is not going to be available to Google Workspace Essentials, Business Starter, Enterprise Essentials, Frontline, and Legacy G Suite Basic and Legacy G Suite Basic customers. Is also not going to be available to users with a personal Google account, but it will be available to everybody else.
That makes sense, yeah. So they've kind of started from the business standard up, which makes sense because if you're an organisation that's going to be using this feature, you're probably on that tier going up. Lovely, Adam. Thank you. What have we got next?
Next up, we've got another update to Google Chat. So all newly created spaces in Google Chat will be inline threaded beginning March the 13th of this year. So as previously announced, Google is streamlining the way you organize conversations in Google Chat. Starting March the 13th, all newly created spaces in Google Chat will be inline threaded. Users will no longer have the option to organize them by conversation topic, where related messages and replies were grouped together in the main conversation window. Existing spaces organized by conversation topic will continue to function as they do right now. Later this year, existing spaces organised by conversation topic will be migrated to the new inline threaded experience. Google will provide more information as to when that is going to happen. So that's not going to happen just yet, but that will be coming in the future. Spaces in Google Chat can help you communicate with a group of people or an organisation about a topic, project, or shared interest. Google has heard from the users that having two different options to organise their spaces can be confusing. To streamline the user experience and accelerate product development, they're focusing on the model most users prefer, which is inline threading. With inline threading, you can reply to any message and create a separate discussion isolated from the main conversation. Inline threads can be helpful when you want to reply to a specific message or discuss a topic in depth without disrupting the flow of the main conversation. Inline threaded spaces are more organised, making it easier for you to scan and understand what's being discussed in the space, browse all topics via the active thread navigation panel, or to find and follow the most relevant topic and conversations.
Excellent. Yeah, I had a look at this in the document, and I encourage anybody listening who's a bit unsure about this to check out the document and have a look at the pictures, because the pictures really just explain this in a second. Again, there's sort of a before and after picture almost, where it's showing the differences between these. But I'll do my best to sort of describe this, just to sort of extend a little bit on Adam's excellent reading of the Google update there. I agree with Google that the inline threading is much, much clearer than the conversation view. And I always found this in Spaces, that the conversation view could be easy to sort of lose your way in conversation view. So for anybody familiar with Google Spaces, which, as we've talked about before, is kind of like groups in WhatsApp, the way that used to work with conversation view was you would type something to talk about something, and it would kind of put it in as a text space, and then everything was stacked kind of vertically, wasn't it, Adam? So you could reply in there, but it would be like a normal conversation that you would see in Messenger, where it would all just be stacked, one after the other. It would go all the way down. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what's the problem with that? That's like a normal messaging platform. But the problem was, because that was all one conversation, if you had multiple conversations going on, you had to scroll all the way up or all the way down to kind of see any updates or anything that was going on. This inline threading instead organises the conversations more horizontally rather than vertically. So what happens is you start a conversation, but then if you want to reply or do something within that conversation, it's kind of on the right hand side of the conversation rather than it all happening underneath. That's probably about the best way that I can describe it. Like I said, I highly encourage you to go and have a look at the document and have a look at the picture, because it will make it very, very clear.
Yes, what this reminded me of, actually, so we use Apple devices. So in Finder, when you view all your files, so the way that it was before, when it's not using inline threading, when it's using, when the spaces are organized by topic, it's a bit like the list view. And where I think the Windows equivalent, if you're using through File Explorer, I think that may be called Details, where you just see a long list of all your documents. Or the new inline threading is more like, I think they call it columns in Finder. Right. And I'm not actually, I can't think what the File Explorer equivalent is. So that's kind
I don't think there is an equivalent in Windows, Adam. I think that's a bit of an Apple exclusive thing, columns. I've certainly never found it.
It just reminded me of the way that you can view your files that way. My personal preference, I actually much prefer to use the list view, which would have been the topic grouping in this example, instead of using columns instead. However, that's for my documents. Going into back to Google Chat, then I think using this inline threading will make it a lot easier, particularly if you're wanting to find older, if you're wanting to reply to a message or find an older conversation that was going on that you're wanting to continue, but without interrupting everything else that's going on within space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Excellent, Adam. Thank you. I think there's a little bit of additional details down here. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So all spaces created on or after March 13th will be inline threaded. Starting on that date, the option to organise the conversation by topic will no longer be visible when users create a new space.
And again, there's a nice picture in the description document showing you what that option looks like and exactly where that is in the setting. When are we going to see it available, and who is this available to, please?
So rapid release and scheduled release is starting on March the 13th. This is going to be available to all Google Workspace customers, as well as legacy G Suite Basic and Business customers, but this is not available to users with a personal Google account.
Yeah, no problem. That makes sense. Like we said before, I'm not too sure how you would even use chat with a personal account, because who are you going to chat with?
You do have access to Google Chat with a personal Google account. But yeah, I doubt that that's super popular, because everyone would just text or use WhatsApp, or they'd use another form of communication.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't imagine many people are communicating in Google Chat personally. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. Lovely, Adam. What have we got next?
Next up, we have another Google Meet update. So expanding noise cancellation in Google Meet to more devices. To limit distractions during meetings, Google Meet offers noise cancellation to filter out background noises such as closing of doors, the sounds of nearby construction. Beginning from right now, noise cancellation is available to users with a personal Google account on a wider variety of Android mobile devices. It's also available to Google Workspace Business Starter, Education Fundamentals, and Education Standard customers. It is also enabled by default for third-party devices that connect to Meet using PEXIP. Expanding this functionality makes calls more productive by reducing distractions across a wider variety of devices.
Excellent. Yeah, again, a really, really useful update, just expanding that use there. I found the noise cancellation on Google Meet to be really, really good. Actually, it is very effective and works very well. I think I used that fairly recently. I mean, Adam, you know, I was having some asbestos removed from my property, and I had to sort of cafe hop for a bit, and I was going in and out of Google Meets whilst doing that. And I'm pretty sure I said to I probably went on a Google Meet with you, I think, while I was doing that. Yeah, and I seem to remember saying, "Oh, I'm sorry about the background noise," but I don't think it was you really noticed too much, did you? Or you? I don't know. Maybe you're just being polite.
No, it was good. I've also noticed quite a lot myself. So especially when I join one of our meetings, if I'm in a staff room at the time, a lot of the time it would end up there would be a staff break or even lunchtime going on in the background, and it's often popping up on my screen that Google is reducing the background noise because it's detecting it's not me speaking, it's something that's going on over there. And so yeah, it's a really good feature to have, and it's great that they're now expanding the availability of this to more people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually a really good point you just reminded me of there, Adam, that Google Meet does actually tell you that it's doing that it's reducing the background noise when it's detected. Again, just really handy to know that that's going on.
I just had a thought. I'm not sure if there's the way to turn that off on demand. If you say no, that's not background noise. That's just the way I sound.
Well, you can actually turn noise cancellation off in the settings. So if if you did find it was interfering, but yeah, maybe if you've got very, very peculiar voice and it thinks your background noise. Lovely. Okay, and who is this going to be available for?
Okay, so before that, so we've got a little bit of getting started. So for the admins, so for any PEXIP users out there, noise cancellation is on by default, but please do refer to PEXIP's documentation for information on turning this feature off. And I've added a link in as well, which will hopefully be very helpful if you're a PEXIP user. To get started for the end users, if you're joining using a Workspace account, your Meeting Host's Workspace Edition will determine your default state. You can turn the feature on or off from the settings menu. If you're joining a meeting on an Android device with your personal Google account, noise cancellation is off by default. So I think it's only if you're using a personal Google account on an Android device, it'll be off by default. So that is definitely worth bearing in mind. I'm not too sure why they would have chosen to do that. I find this feature super helpful, so I would prefer to have it on by default, but bear that in mind. If you're using a personal Google account and you're on an Android device, it will be off by default. So just look into that if that's something that you wish to change. The rapid release and scheduled release for this is started on February the 27th.
Great. Okay, so that's already starting to roll out, and just something else to mention there. I noticed that they've expanded the availability to Education Fundamentals and Education Standard customers, and that's really really nice to see, because as you said earlier, Adam, schools are noisy places, and there's a lot of background noise that's often picked up, or rather going on in the background and sometimes picked up. So it's good that that's expanded to those editions as well to help those education customers. Lovely, thank you very much. What have we got next there, Adam?
Next up, we have a Gmail update. So client-side encryption for Gmail is now generally available. So we've seen some very, very similar updates previously with client-side encryption, but it's now expanded. It's gone across to Gmail. So client-side encryption for Gmail is now generally available for Google Workspace Enterprise Plus, Education Plus, and Education Standard customers. For customers currently enrolled in the beta, your experience will not change. Workspace already encrypts data at rest and in transit by using secure, by design, cryptographic libraries. Client-side encryption takes existing encryption capabilities to the next level by ensuring that customers have sole control over their encryption keys and thus complete control over access to their data.
Yeah, absolutely, Adam. So we have covered these similar updates in a few of our podcasts, sort of broadcasts before, where it's talked about client-side encryption in Google Takeout and client-side encryption.
Yeah, I think the last one was Google Calendar.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually. Yeah, that's absolutely right. But again, the picture that's been included with this, or that you've kindly put on, just makes this so much easier to understand, because you've got within a Google Gmail message, when you go to type a new message, you've got a padlock and you've just got additional encryption and you can just turn it on. So I think when we were speculating about this, talking about it with Google Takeout, I think we were absolutely right in the fact that the way this works is you as an organization can kind of install your own client keys or your own encryption keys from your own source and then make those available for people to use within the organization. And for an end user, all they kind of do is just open an email and go, yeah, I want to encrypt. And it uses not just the, as Google says, the built-in encryption that Google's using, but it then uses the company encryption, and it just helps you comply. I mean, even in the picture here, it says protect sensitive information and comply with company policy. So again, it just helps companies comply with their GDPR requirements.
Tick all those boxes, but keep it simple and easy to use for the users in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like that's a win-win, isn't it? So yeah, I think this is again a really, really useful little update here. How do people get started with that? I presume there's some kind of installation of the key or something, maybe.
So for the admins to get started with this, this feature will be off by default, but it can be enabled at the domain, OU and group levels. And to do that, you'd need to go to the admin console, then find security, access and data control, then client-side encryption. For the end users, which we've already alluded to, once enabled by your workspace admin, to add client-side encryption to any message, click on the lock icon and select additional encryption, and then you just compose your message and add attachments as normal.
Yeah, really, really easy for the end users then once that's installed. I presume for the admins beyond that, when you go to admin console security, access and data control, and then client-side encryption, I presume that when you turn it on, it will then, I would have thought, probably say something like install your key or select your provider or something like that, so that you can then add that sort of encryption layer in and you can put that in. Excellent, thank you, Adam. And who is this available to?
Okay, so this is only available to Google Workspace Enterprise Plus, Education Plus, and Education Standard customers. It's not available to anybody else outside of those tiers. However, rapid release and scheduled release is available right now. So if you are part of Enterprise Plus, Education Plus, or Education Standard, you will have access to this right now, if it's been enabled by your admin.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Or admin, so you've got the ability to turn it on now. Very interesting that Google have gone right at the top tier of Enterprise Plus for the business market. I can understand why. I mean, I think Enterprise Plus is a little bit high. I think I would have liked to have seen that on Enterprise at the minimum, but I'm sure Google have their reasons for putting that on. Again, maybe like we said with the updates before, maybe it's to do with the fact that because Enterprise Plus gives certain levels of access to things like APIs and making your own apps, maybe it's more that the encryption system itself is just not available below Enterprise Plus. Maybe that's why it's at that high level. But what's very nice to see is the fact that it's available to Education Plus, but also Education Standard as well. So it's nice that they've made it more open on the education side there.
Yes, absolutely. But I kind of agree that I was thinking, well, if it's available to Education Standard, Surely it would also be also available to business standard as well, because surely they would have just as much cause to encrypt their emails as well.
I agree. I mean, I just would have expected it to be, like, say, enterprise at the sort of minimum. But anyway, Google have set enterprise plus. Maybe in a future update we'll see that they'll expand it a little bit and make it available for some other tiers there. Lovely, thank you, Adam. And I think we've got our final update next, haven't we?
Yes, so our last update this week is to do with Google Keep. So Google Keep Notes are now available on the home screen of Android devices. In addition to dual pane view, drag out, and a number of other features supporting the mission to provide a top-class user experience on your Android devices when using Google Keep, Google are introducing the Keep Single Note widget. With this new feature, you can pin a note or list to your home screen and edit them in the Keep app with a single tap. Lists enable you to toggle checkboxes directly on the notes without having to open the Keep app. Also, your notes and lists will reflect any background colours and reminders present within the Keep app. Finally, a collaborator icon will appear on the icon of a note to indicate that if it is a shared note between two or more people. By giving you quick and easy access to your most important notes and lists on your home screen, Google hopes this feature will increase your productivity whilst using the Keep app. So this is a great little update. This reminds me of, what's it called that those Windows users use? Is that sticky notes, where they just stick notes on their home screen just as reminders, or if it's a list or something along those lines. So this very much reminded me of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I use Todoist a lot, and I find it pretty good. I don't think it's quite as amazing as everybody kind of goes on about. Sorry anybody from Todoist who's listening, but I've got some great ideas to improve it. If you want to chat, I think it's good. It's fundamentally it is very good, but. Yeah, I mean, one of the things with Todoist, for example, is the fact that you always have to open it to go into it. Now, I will confess, on iOS, there have been several updates around being able to put in widgets on the home screen to do this type of thing, and I haven't even remotely looked into that. So maybe this is my ignorance here that Todoist does actually support something within the widgets on iOS. But going back to this update with Android, I can really see, again, the picture shows this really nicely. The picture is interesting though, Adam, just to sort of go into that a little bit. That is a very big screen that they've put that note on. I assume that is one of the sort of ones that folds out like a book. I was just having a little scan back there to see if it specifically said that these are for larger screen Android devices, but I don't think so. It talks about dual pane view, but this particular update is not just restricted to larger screen devices, is it?
I think you're right. No, this should just be available to all Android devices. But I would definitely agree the graphic looks much nicer on a larger screen device. So if you're just using your mobile phone that happens to be an Android, then it probably won't have a massive screen. So then if you then stuck a note onto the desktop of your phone, it will take up half the screen, if not more, depending on the list.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, depending on how many apps you've got and how organised you are, I suppose what you could have is on your first screen you could have all your folders of all of your apps, and then you could just swipe, and then that could be your note sort of screen, if you like, on the second screen, and then maybe your third screen is reserved for apps that you don't use very often or something like that. But it looks very nice on the graphic, and I think fundamentally it's a very nice idea. I've actually thought about using Google Keep to kind of replace Todoist myself, actually, and thought that maybe it's a better system for me to be on. So I think I will be looking into Keep a little bit more, even though this particular update doesn't apply because I don't have an Android phone. But this is a very nice little sort of tweak there for people to have quick access to those lists. Interesting that it puts down The example that they've chosen, the example they've gone with, is a recipe, which is a slightly odd choice. I don't know why you'd want a recipe on your screen all the time, but anyway, that's the example that Google's chosen to go with.
I actually think that's a really good example because an idea of this would be, say, if you're going shopping, then it's just your shopping list of the ingredients that you need. So let's just stick the list onto your home screen when you go off to the shop, so you don't have to open different apps to have a look, and then you can just mark off the ingredients you're getting as you purchase them.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I have to say that I used to do it as a shopping list as well. So I see your point there. Yeah, absolutely. Lovely. Who's this? Sorry. What's the getting started on this, Adam? And then what's the rollout?
Okay, so for the admins, there are no admin controls for this feature.
That's easy. Great. What's the rollout phase there, and who's that available for?
So a rapid release and scheduled release for this update started on March the 2nd, and this is going to be available to all Google Workspace customers as well as legacy G Suite Basic and Business customers. This is also going to be available to users with a personal Google account.
Great, that's absolutely wonderful. Lovely, thank you so much, Adam. That's a really, really good roundup there. And that is it, everybody. That's everything that you need to know about everything that's happening in the world of Google Workspace. Thank you so much for joining us, as always. Please remember that this podcast is available in audio format from your regular podcast provider, and also in video format on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/strawberry7. We appreciate all of you listening and all of you viewing, and please do put some comments or some reviews and reach out to us in the comments and description section as you need to. Thank you so much for joining us this week.
We'll be back again next Monday with more updates.
Goodbye.
Bye.